Hello, BIO127. This is the version 2.0 of the BIO127 Lab Nutrition Project instructions. I've got several other lectures on the science of nutrition. How to calculate BMR is its own topic, and you will utilize both of those in order to accomplish this project. But this is the document that you're actually going to fill out to complete that project, and you're going to fill this document out and submit it to the Lab Nutrition Project submission site anytime before finals week, basically. So what we have with our nutrition project is a goal for students to monitor their own nutrition over the course of 2 separate days and their activity level over the course of an entire week and assess themselves. But I'm going to put a big old caveat in this. I may have said this elsewhere in my statements about what this project is going to be and about nutrition in general. But for this project, since it is about recording calories and macronutrients and everything else, if you have a history of disordered eating, if you have ever struggled with food, I really don't want this to be a triggering experience for you. So my recommendation is that if you have a history of disordered eating, please use an imaginary client or a friend, and just make sure that your recommendations are in keeping with a healthy amount of nutrition. One day I actually plan to completely change what this project is. This is adapted from my predecessor's project. I tried to take it on and adapt it for ways that I like more. I also just don't want it to all be about weight loss. I don't want to see everybody's project to be about weight loss. I have a lot of other health goals that I've put into here as options: weight gain, weight maintenance, muscle mass, cardiovascular fitness, gaining muscles is what I mean, muscle building. And again, if you're one of those people who've had a history of disordered eating, I'd really much prefer to see, and I have no control of this whatsoever, but I do recommend that you focus on, okay, my imaginary client wants to build muscle. My imaginary client wants to maintain their weight. They want to improve their cardiovascular fitness. Something along those lines, so that this has the minimal chance of triggering you. So with that caveat out of the way, that brings us to the actual instructions for this assignment. So again, it can be you or it can be a friend. Technically, you could just imagine a person and what they're eating for a couple of days. The purpose of that isn't to give you a free pass to make this all up. I know students definitely did that last semester. The purpose is not to give you a free pass to make things up. The purpose of that is for people with a history of eating disorders and disordered eating and struggles with body dysphoria and dysmorphia to have a way out of the parts that are going to make them struggle. So if you're not in that category, I really do want you properly tracking somebody's calories, yours or a friend's. I definitely saw a lot of people with really, really low caloric counts and in their tracking and their daily tracking. And my suspicion is a lot of people either made up what they were eating in a day or, did this 2, 3, 4 days later and just kind of tried to remember everything they'd eaten those days and really couldn't remember everything they'd eaten. So everybody's calorie count was like 900 calories in a day. Oh, I had 1100 calories that day. And that's kind of a dead giveaway for me that either there's disordered eating happening or people are just not tracking what they're eating very well. So, I can see it when it's happening. Be aware of that. And I'd rather see a realistic depiction of what people are eating in a day. And if you can't figure that out, then ask somebody else. I've mentioned this, again, I'm not sure what I've mentioned in my other videos. There are lots of apps that do this. MyFitnessPal is a great way to track your macronutrients. It tracks your daily protein, your fats, your carbs. It'll even, if you're actually recording everything that you eat, it's also going to include your micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals, and that will help you with this column right here. But I don't want to assume that everybody has a smartphone. I don't want to assume that everybody has this technology, so you can also manually include this. Now, one thing I do not want is I do not want a copied and pasted like screen from MyFitnessPal. I don't want separate tables. I want you to fill out this table that I've given you so that I can grade everybody consistently, because some people were submitting multiple files and saying, okay, here's my file where I have all of my numbers, which I just took from this other screen. It's not in the format I asked you to give it to me to, and it might not have all of the information on the same page, and then I have to go through several different pages of something that's in the wrong format for me. So please actually enter that information onto this. Another thing that people had an issue with last semester was they weren't listing major nutrients, or they would just say protein, fat, carbs, which is already over here. So I am looking for, okay, I had a sweet potato and that had vitamin A in it. I had some kale and that had vitamin K in it. And I had some milk and that had vitamin D in it, and so on and so forth. Like, I want you to actually be able to track what foods are a major source of vitamins and minerals in addition to some other major nutrients. And that's actually going to allow you later on to recommend other foods to make up for shortfalls that you do identify. So if you're getting vitamin A every day because you love sweet potatoes, great. But are you getting enough magnesium? Did you get enough vitamin D? Did you get enough vitamin K? Did you get enough leafy greens? And then you go out and you find out, okay, I was really, really short on vitamin K. How do I get that? And you find out you get that from leafy greens. So you recommend that you're going to add in broccoli. You're going to add in some kale. You're going to add in some kind of leafy green that has vitamin K and make up a specific vitamin shortfall. You can only do that if you actually put some effort into this column here. Let's see. I'm only requesting high, medium, or low for glycemic index, so you kind of take an assessment of all the foods they ate. If it's a bunch of fries, if it's a bunch of cookies, if it's a bunch of, white bread, then overall glycemic index is going to be high. If it's a mix of, whole wheat, but then there was a cookie later, that's going to be medium. And if it's a whole bunch of vegetables and some protein and some fats, then we're going to get a low glycemic index overall. So that's what we're going to be looking to identify there. It doesn't have to be a number. Nobody really was problematic about that. I also found issues with this column, fluids by ounce, that people recorded. The major issue wasn't recording this. Most people gave me, 32 ounces, 64 ounces. Some people said 120 ounces. The issue with this is when they addressed fluids. And same for caloric content. So as I mentioned, a lot of people were recording, I only consumed 1,100 calories yesterday. I consumed 900 calories yesterday. In the recommendations, students were saying, I need to put in, I need to redo this. You know what? Let's pause for a sec. I hadn't put caloric intake on there. So if somebody's saying that I only took in 900 calories, 1,200 calories, 1,100 calories, your recommendation needs to be based on the number they actually gave you. Nobody should be getting under 1,200 calories per day. There's a lot of science to back that up, and if you don't believe me, you can look into it. If you're an adult taking this class, you need more than 1,200 calories per day. So you're going to take their actual caloric intake and you're going to make actual recommendations based on what they said. Even if their goal is weight loss, if they're getting 900 or 1,100 calories per day, that's still too low. It's going to damage their metabolism. You still need to advise them to get more calories, and you still need to have a reference for why that is. We'll get, I guess I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So let's head back here. So you're going to get the most accurate calorie count you possibly can based on ideally a real person. You'll get accurate fluids so that you can make real recommendations that are based on it. That's where we're actually at. We are going to calculate the daily percentages based on table 1. So you will be counting up the overall protein, fats, and carbs consumed over the course of a day. And I've given you an example of how to do the math if you're not a math person and you don't know how to get those percentages. So on day 1, what percentage did they consume of protein? What percentage of carbohydrates? What percentage of their daily intake was fats? Again, if you're using something like MyFitnessPal, it gives you those numbers right off the bat. But if you're recording everything in grams manually, that's a little bit more of a challenge, and you can do that math based on this right here. And that also is going to be something that you use for your recommendations. You will find for specific fitness goals, there are specific ratios that are recommended. And that's another thing that you can research and you can source. So you can say, I found from this source, if this person is trying to gain muscle mass, we actually recommend this proportion of protein to carb to fat. So that's something that is going to be a readily available, high quality reference for you. So you'll do that for each day separately. You'll track daily activity over the course of a week. I really set this up to be as straightforward as possible. I could have had you tracking nutrition for a week. I just wanted compliance to be high. Some people are good at tracking their nutrients. Some people are not good at tracking their nutrients. So I wanted to put this at a reasonable level. The idea is that these are 2 representative days. These are just 2 entirely random days. And that's representative of what they're eating every day. Right? That's when we want to catch people. We don't want it to be, this is my cheat day. We don't want it to be, oh, I, was at the end of my paycheck and all I had was peanut butter and jelly. So it was peanut butter and jelly for 3 meals, or all I had was ramen. We want it to be a representative day as much as possible for 2 days. But I did have you track daily activity for a week. I feel like that's easy enough to track. And one issue we had was people weren't paying attention to formatting. It's pretty minor, but I've asked you to format it a certain way, and it's really, really straightforward. I'm not looking for a PhD in exercise tracking. So all we're doing is saying, on Sunday, I worked out for 20 minutes at high intensity. That would be 20H. Literally, 20 minutes H. That's it. I don't want an essay on I did 20 minutes of HIIT and then, no, that's not what we're doing. I did 20 pound dumbbells for 15 minutes and then no, we're not doing that. We're just 20-minute H. And that gives you an overall idea of what the exercise modifier should be on your BMR calculation. So this is what you're going to use. And it's going to be an intuitive thing. If most days are H, then that would be a high exercise modifier. If most things are M, then it would be a medium. If it's a combination of L, M, H, it would probably still be medium, and so on and so forth. I do have you calculate BMR based on a separate video that I think I already did okay with. That BMR does have to include the exercise modifier. Last semester, right here, I was getting a whole lot of people telling me their BMR was 1150, 950, 1050, which means that they did not include the exercise modifier. In fact, it's kind of low anyway. A lot of people got it right, but some people just did. It looks like they didn't include the exercise modifier. Now remember, when you don't include the exercise modifier, BMR is literally you are lying down doing nothing, including eating, for 24 hours straight. So that is calories needed to survive when you're doing absolutely nothing. You're not even getting up to walk to the fridge, right? That's the BMR without the exercise modifier. So your BMR without an exercise modifier is not your BMR. So I've clarified these instructions to say they have to include the exercise modifier. Even if it's low, that number does increase. If your BMR is under 1200, you've either done the calculation incorrectly, or you're wrong. You're lying about some aspect, or that's really it. Yeah, there's no BMR under 1200. There just isn't. You're going to damage yourself if you're getting less than 1200 calories per day. Okay, so down here I have your stats and recommendations. So you're going to take everything that you've already kind of put in here, and you're going to make recommendations that are actually based on it. You're going to put them side by side so that I can see if you're making recommendations based on their actual reality that they presented to you, not what you imagine that they're doing or you are doing, not what you assume, but what is actual. So overall activity level, again, you already calculated this at table 3. It's just high, medium, or low. You could say sedentary, but just those are the options, high, medium, or low. Proteins, fats, and carbs in percents. So you take the thing that you already calculated and then you recommend either they stay the same or a different one based on science. So what does science say that they should do? Likewise, this should be heavily cited. There should be a lot of in-text citations in this table. So many. So if you think they need to increase their activity level, why? Who said? You are not a nutritionist. You are not an exercise specialist, a physical trainer, a physical therapist, an occupational therapist. So you have to refer to somebody else and what they say about their activity level. So this column in particular should be absolutely full of in-text citations. So if you're recommending an increase in activity level, what increase in activity level and why, and where did you get that information from? Protein, fats, and carbs, if you're changing up their percentages, why? What does it help them do? Where did you get that information? And I want this to be from high quality sources. Men's Health magazine is not a high quality source. The internet's like Karen's page for physicalfitness.com is not a high quality reference. I want your references to be from academic journals. I want this to be nutritionists, not a nutritionist's website, but a nutritionist publishing in an academic journal about what they've discovered about overall activity level, protein, fat, and carb percentages, so on and so forth. Journals, not websites. Okay. And not magazines that you get at the grocery store. I'm very serious about this, or the websites of magazines that you get at the grocery store. There's a lot of trends, and you can talk about a trend. Maybe somebody's interested. Maybe their goal is, I want to go on keto. Okay, do a ton of research in the academic journals about how to go keto safely. Maybe their goal is, I want to go vegan. Do a lot of research in the academic journals about going vegan, and then make this advice based on that. If they are going keto, if they are going vegan, then there are going to be a lot of recommendations in here of things they should include in order to get a complete balanced diet. If you're going vegan, how are you going to get B12? That's a really important issue if you're going vegan. If you're going keto, what foods are you going to use to replace those really high carb foods? So all of that should be cited, and all of that should come from high quality resources. Okay, glycemic index, this is going to be, again, an overall high, medium, or low. If their glycemic index is already low, my recommendation may just be to stay low. But if their current glycemic index is very high, and maybe they have other health concerns such as diabetes mellitus, maybe there are some recommendations to make there. Again, you're not making your recommendations in a vacuum. You are getting them from somewhere, so cite them properly. Fruit and vegetable servings per day, so actually count out how many fruit and vegetable servings they got based on their actual diet, and then make recommendations. There's average recommendations from the USDA. You can refer to those. But if you want to recommend something beyond the average, outside of the average, you're going to need to tell me where you got that information. Again, if it's a specialized diet, vegetarian, vegan, keto, then there are going to be different recommendations, and then you'll have to cite that. Fluid consumption, again, look at what they actually did, give them recommendations for what they should do, but if you're recommending something very high or low, I expect a citation for why. There was one that was perfect. They recommended a very, very high fluid volume, but then they mentioned the client's on a medication that requires this volume of fluid. Perfect. Flawless. That is justified. That is good. But if Men's Magazine told you that you need to drink a gallon of water every day, that's not legitimate. We're going to have to justify anything that's out of the ordinary. Even that 8 glasses a day stereotype is incorrect. And that is very, very out of date. And if you look into the literature now, it is not what is recommended. So if you're saying 8 glasses of water, 64 ounces a day or more, I really need an in-text citation for why you're recommending that. Or if you're recommending something very low, why are you recommending that? Caloric intake, again, the biggest problem here was people saying, my goal is weight loss. I've been consuming 900 calories per day, and their recommendation was still reduce caloric intake. That's not based in what they told you. You do have to refer to their actual current state. And again, if it's under 1200, we've got a serious problem. Okay, I do expect right underneath this table a references section, and I've decided on APA format. I think previously this assignment was in a something sciences format. I'm just not familiar enough with that format, and I think more people are familiar with APA, and also Microsoft Word is comfortable with APA formatting, comfortable enough for me in my standards. The important things about your APA section: in-text citations, in-text citations that match your references section, and a references section where I can immediately look down and see that you followed all of my instructions and the vast majority of your references are from high quality references, academic journals. If you're referencing Men's Health Magazine, Women's Health Magazine, Oprah Magazine, or oprahmagazine.com or karensdietaryintake.com, then you did not follow instructions. In fact, I'm going to clarify that, let's say 75% of references or more must be from academic journals, casual websites, and health magazines are not allowed as references for this project. So you could use some websites like USDA guidelines. That would be an acceptable reference for what is typical if you're just referencing typical stuff. But it might be that you're writing a section in your recommendations that's more along the lines of USDA recommends this many, but this source recommends this many, and this is what I recommend for this client for this reason. So that might be something that you want to do. Let's see. Okay, I think that should be clear enough. Let me know if it's not. I think that should help correct a lot of the issues that we had with this last semester. If any of the instructions are unclear, please email me, kbinford@nwcc.edu, and let me know if you want to set up a meeting to discuss the trajectory of your project. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a good time with it.